welcome to our next masterclass in a piece from the ABRSM piano syllabus. This week, you may have recognized that opening, is the German Dance in B-flat by Ludwig van Beethoven, which is part of the Grade 3 syllabus, as was last week's Tom Bowling. Now, first of all, I'd like to draw your attention to the title of the piece, German Dance in B-flat. Dance. Okay, I'm going to play you two versions of the opening line and just compare the two. And version 2. Now, hopefully, I hope you will agree that the second version was more dance-like. So the question is, how did I achieve that dance-like character? First of all, the articulation. Now, the word articulation means things like staccato or legato, the way we slur notes, the way we lift them. And if you notice very carefully, right at the beginning, I've circled it for you as well, there is a little wedge sign under the very first note. And then it is followed by a slur on the next two notes. Now, that wedge sign is a super staccato. Very short. I have had students who started learning this piece and straight away they just slur the whole lot, making it all legato. And already you're losing some of the dance-like character. So, now, slurring. Okay, we know that that little curvy line means to join one note to the next note. But what do we do with the last note of a slur? This applies through all music. Whatever piece you're playing, you have two notes joined together there with the curvy slur line. Now, the last note of a slur needs to be lifted. Do you notice that? You lift the last note of the slur. Therefore, when you put it all together, you have like another staccato note at the end. Okay, carrying on. Now, in the left hand, there is also another slur marking down here. When do you lift that note? Likewise, as you did in the right hand. Excuse me, my computer's playing silly games. Right, I was distracted me there. Let's do that again. Notice the left hand lifts, but also notice how the right hand, which has a minim at the top, you see this minim at the top here, that lasts for 2 beats, and you lift it as you finish the slur in the left hand. Watch closely. See the hands come off together. And then in the next bar we have something similar again. The right hand lifts off at the end of the slur. But in this case, the left hand, and I've circled it again for you, there is a rest. Now that rest has to occur immediately as you get to the second beat. Notice how the left hand lifts off. Exactly when the right hand hits the second beat on the slur. And then it alternates the other way around again. Notice there the right hand comes off as you get to the end of the left hand slur. In the next bar, it goes back to the other way. There is a rest in the left hand and it releases as you get to the slur in the right hand. we have these little grace notes. Now, these grace notes are quite tricky, especially at grade 3 level, because they tend to land on your 4th and 5th fingers, and it could be a little bit clumsy and awkward. I would suggest that you don't try and think of them as separate notes. Almost play them as a chord of 2 notes, like this. And then the next one. See? Playing them together. But as you play them together, just rotate your wrist, your arm, slightly clockwise. And the next one. And the last one. So that slight rotation means that the 4th finger will land just a little bit before the 5th finger, without thinking of them as separate notes and getting that clumsy, slow grace note. Just a little rotation and play them virtually together. So let's put the first line all together. Now, on the second line, we have something similar going on. Notice again, there is a minim in the right hand, and it lifts with the second note of the left hand when it slows down. Remembering that you release the last note of a slur. By the way, if you're not doing this piece, if you're not doing grade 3 in general, this is still useful for you because slurs are everywhere in every grade, and it's the same principle that applies. You lift the last note of a slur. Okay, and carrying on. Again, the left hand has a rest which releases with the right hand last note of the slur, the second beat. And then it swaps back to the right hand. And then we have these grace notes again. Almost play them simultaneously, but just rotate your arm slightly clockwise. And then you get a nice, clean, neat grace note. So, let's play the first half. One more thing before we go on to the trio section, the second half, and that's where to put the accents. Now, in a dance, which is usually in 3-time, you lean on the first beat of a bar. You could almost feel it like one beat in a bar. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, like that. There are, written in the part, some sforzando markings, SF, as you can see there, and later there. Now, sforzando means with extra force, but we have to remember this was written in the classical period, and extra force in the classical period isn't as much as extra force, say, a century later in the Romantic period. So, something like this is just too much. Okay, it's just a little lean on the first beat of the bar. In fact, you could generally lean on the first beat of the bar to give it a dance-like feel for every bar in this piece. Just get that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and you've got that lean feel on the first beat, which propels the music forward in a dance-like way. Now, let's go on to the trio section. In general, in the classical period, trio sections, when it comes to a minuet and trio, a dance and trio, were slightly contrasted in style. And the contrast in this piece is achieved through two different means. First of all, you play quieter. Okay? And secondly, it is a more flowing melody. It's not quite so angular and staccato. Okay, there are some staccato crotchets at the end of that phrase, but they're very neat and tidy. So you don't want any sort of messiness in them, just nice and precise. Okay, and as we carry on, a very similar phrase. Now on the last line, again, we have sforzando markings here, and again later here. This sforzando is in the context of piano, because the trio section is generally, as we said earlier, it is softer. It's marked P. Sorry, my finger was in the way a little bit there. Okay, and when you get a sforzando in the context of piano, again, it's just a little lean. It's not. It's just too much. Notice, however, that you have to slur from two-note chords in each hand to two-note chords at the end of the slur. And I've heard many students who are playing this piece do something like, and almost make the second chord louder than the first. It's too heavy. Just lift off the second chord and make it definitely lighter than the first. So playing the whole of that line. And there is the trio section. Now, at the end of the trio section it says DC al fine, and I hope you know that means you go back to the beginning and play to the word fine, which is the first two lines again. Here we have DC al fine. So you go back to the beginning and you play all the way until the word fine. Now in ABRSM exams, you are expected to do these repeats back to the beginning, these DC al fines. But there are repeat signs all the way through this piece, and technically if you were performing this in a concert, you would play every repeat, but for ABRSM exams, you don't play the normal repeats. So for example, the repeat sign at the end of this first line, the repeat sign at the end of the second line, and third line, and fourth line, all of these lines are normally repeated in a performance, but not in an ABRSM exam. However, in a performance, when you go back to the beginning and do the repeats of the first section, you don't, not even in a concert, do the repeats. That's just a little tip if you were actually going to perform this in a concert. Okay, now, going back to this trio section. This is quite a tricky little section for someone of a grade 3 standard, and it can often end up with uneven quavers. See that? It's not even. You're supposed to play them all exactly the same length. And that can be quite tricky, particularly in that bar there, which is bar 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30. Bar 30. Because you're using your fourth, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, sorry, I made a mistake. Bar 29. You're using your fourth and fifth fingers fairly quickly. Now, the tendency, what I've heard many of my students do, is to fall onto the fifth finger too quickly. So to counteract that, a little exercise that I sometimes do, and you can use this, once again, with any one passage that has fast quavers, or even semi-quavers in some of the higher grades, is to make dotted rhythms out of them. So you could go like this. Long, short, long, short, long, long, short, long, short, long. And that is counteracting the natural tendency to fall quickly onto the fifth finger. Yeah? And then when you play it normally, it should tidy everything up. Now, I'm going to play the whole piece through with the repeat back to the beginning, as you would for an ABRSM exam. And if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat box on the side and we could have a little discussion afterwards. Okay, feel free to leave your questions in the chat. I'll wait for a couple of moments because I don't see anything particularly appearing in the chat section. Maybe some of you have joined later, so if you don't get a chance to partake in the live chat, then feel free to just leave comments. This will be on my channel later. Feel free to leave comments in the normal comments section below and I can answer them there. But for now, since no one is actually in the live chat at this moment, we'll just finish the video there and thank you for watching. But if you want to be available for Nordic keys, thank you. Very instructive and good pedagogical advices. Greetings from Sweden. Well, thank you very much, Nordic Keys. It's very good to have you in the chat. And I would recommend to go over to Nordic Keys. They have an excellent piano channel. I've seen many of their videos and Thomas there is an excellent pianist, so give them a little watch out as well. Okay, in the absence of any more messages in the live chat, this channel is quite small, so obviously not so many people are watching live, but it's something I'm trying to grow. And if you come across this video at a later date, after it's been sent out live, then fair enough. You can always subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you will get a notification when we are going live again. And I usually put up a little a notification that it's going live the next day. So you'll actually get a notification of that. By the way, if any of you were tuned into my previous live chat, I got a nice thank you there from Nordic Keys. And sorry, if any of you were waiting for my previous live chat, there was a little technical problem with the equipment and it went live without me actually being ready for the stream. Trying to do it on a telephone, so it's a learning process for me, but hopefully the quality of these live streams will improve in the future. And please do subscribe, click the notification bell, and then you will be notified when we are going live again. But for now, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.